Discover the incredible life-changing strategies that made Warren Buffett a 100 billion empire. Sarah's heart raced as she flipped through the dog-eared pages of the book that had captured her imagination. The dim light of the diner cast a warm glow over the worn countertop, and the enticing aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the sweetness of pancakes sizzling on the grill. This was her world, a world built on hard work, dreams, and the unwavering belief that she could break free from the cycle of struggle that had defined her family for generations. She bit her lip, glancing up as customers poured in, their laughter ringing through the air like a sweet melody. She smiled, hiding the burden of her ambitions behind a mask of cheerfulness. Every morning, she watched her parents pour their souls into this humble diner. They were tired, but proud. Each dollar they made worked harder than ever for their only daughter. "You can do better, Sarah," her mother would say with a hopeful gleam in her eyes, urging her to chase her dreams. Yet, the weight of expectation pressed heavy on Sarah's shoulders, magnified by the looming threat of Baker's Big Box, a corporate monster that threatened to swallow their beloved diner whole. As she wiped down the tables between shifts, doubt slithered into her heart. What if she didn't have what it took? Ignoring the whispers of skepticism that echoed around her, she dove deeper into Buffett's teachings during brief moments of solitude in the bustling kitchen. His wisdom felt like a lifeline, but did it really hold the power to save everything she loved? Then came the dreadful news: the bank had slapped a foreclosure notice on the diner, claiming that profits had plummeted too low. Panic rippled through the community, once unified in shared dreams, now fracturing under the weight of fear. Sarah's heartbeat quickened each time she passed familiar faces, now filled with anxiety and resentment. They had once celebrated her success, but now it felt like a betrayal just waiting to happen. Every dollar she invested, every penny she hoped to grow, became a gamble on trust, a tightrope she wasn't sure she could walk. But then, amid murmurings of despair, a spark ignited. "We can't let them take this from us," she declared during a gathering, her voice trembling yet unwavering. As she called for a town meeting to unite their voices against the impending threat, those around her began to shift, doubt morphing gradually into a flicker of hope. "If we band together," she said, her eyes shining brightly, "we can fight." The room buzzed with murmurs, stories blending into a tapestry of resilience and shared experience. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." But as Sarah stood before her neighbors, sobs of determination mixing with tears of fear, doubt clawed at her heart once again. Could she truly inspire them? Would her efforts be enough to keep their dreams from being swallowed whole by corporate greed? Each face around her was painted with longing and uncertainty. The air felt thick with tension, as if they all were collectively holding their breath. As the meeting wrapped up, she caught a glimpse of hope blooming in their eyes. Yet, as she looked towards the diner just visible through the window, the stakes felt even higher. Could she protect this slice of home, the heart of their community, before it was too late? Time ticked away, and with it, the shadows of uncertainty deepened. What sacrifices would she have to make to save the diner and everyone who had ever shared a meal there? The clock was ticking. As the weeks drifted by, Sarah found herself standing on the edge, balancing between her dreams and the crushing weight of reality. The diner was her heartbeat, but each day felt like a slow march toward a looming deadline. The foreclosure notice still clung to the corkboard, a grim reminder of the battle that lay ahead. She woke up each morning with fresh resolve, yet by nightfall, doubts gnawed at her like rats in the walls. Every conversation buzzed with the fears of her neighbors. The mention of Baker's Big Box sent shivers through their community, their collective spirit threatened by what felt like an unstoppable force. Sarah tried to counter the negativity. "We have to focus on what we can control," she told her dad one evening as he peeled potatoes in the kitchen. The sunlight filtering through the greasy windows, casting a warm glow on his tired face. His hands paused, and he looked up at her, pride and concern battling in his gaze. "And what's that, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We can appeal to the town for support," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "If we show them how important the diner is to this place, maybe they'll rally behind us." For the first time in weeks, the flicker of belief kindled in her father's eyes. "You think so?" he asked, as if the idea was taking root slow but steady. The next step was to gather momentum. Sarah spent evenings crafting flyers, pouring her heart into words that expressed not just the need to save the diner, but the essence of their community, a place filled with laughter, history, and memories of togetherness. She posted them around town, each piece a silent plea. As the days turned into a blur, a miraculous thing happened. People began showing up, not just to talk but to help. Mrs. Ortega, the elderly woman who always ordered the same breakfast, brought her special apple pie recipe, volunteering to bake for a community fundraiser. Young men set up a car wash. Teenagers offered to do yard work, donating their earnings. Suddenly, the diner felt less like a sinking ship and more like a gathering storm, united by hope. Encouraged by the community's response, Sarah organized a rally, declaring a Save Our Diner Day. The plan was simple: turn the diner into a fairground for an afternoon, where they could share their favorite dishes and tell stories about what the diner meant to them. A glimmer of anticipation filled the air the day of the event. As laughter erupted from all corners of the diner, Sarah couldn't help but smile with gratitude. The love in that room enveloped her like a comforting blanket. Family, friends, and neighbors came together, sharing meals, conversations, and laughter, transforming the diner from a mere building into a tapestry of their shared lives. However, as they celebrated, the specter of Baker's big box loomed like a dark cloud on the horizon. Sarah could feel the tension creeping in again as she checked her phone one last time for updates from the bank. "What if it's not enough?" she murmured, dread coiling in her stomach. The townsfolk continued to enjoy their day, unaware of her creeping doubts. And yet, as she looked out over the crowd, her heart swelled with determination. Maybe they weren't just fighting for the diner, but for something larger, a community that refused to be silenced. But just as things began to feel right, a shadow fell over her day when she spotted a familiar figure at the edge of the crowd. Mr. Baker, his arms crossed, his expression as cold as steel. He was watching, calculating. "Time to take my rightful place," he muttered under his breath, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. What was he planning? Would he take this from her, too? As the laughter of her friends mingled with the chill that ran down her spine, she knew the fight was far from over. The laughter echoed in the air, but Sarah felt like an intruder in her own celebration. Mr. Baker's presence hovered like a storm cloud, darkening the warm glow that the diner had wrapped around them. She took a step forward, gripping the edge of the counter, her heart thumping wildly in her chest. "Is he here to ruin everything?" she thought, feeling the weight of everyone's hopes pressing down on her. Her father approached, sensing her nervous energy. "What's wrong, pumpkin?" he asked as he wiped his hands on his apron, glancing toward Baker. "There's something about him," Sarah sighed, her brow furrowed. "He won't just watch from the sidelines." Mr. Baker, meanwhile, had begun to move through the crowd, his eyes narrowing on the bazaar of food and joy. The pie-eating contest was about to begin, laughter bubbling up with each bite taken. Clutching a trophy made from recycled utensils, the town's mayor stepped onto a makeshift stage, wrapping up his speech about community spirit. But it was Baker, lurking like a predator, who made Sarah's skin crawl. "Listen," her dad said, his voice a solid anchor. "Keep your eyes on the people who are here for you. Focus on the good." She glanced around, and for a moment, gratitude washed over her again. The crowd was lively, so many had come to help, to show their love for their diner. But then she spotted Mr. Baker leaning against the wall, smirking at the town folks like a wolf surveying sheep. Suddenly, she felt a surge of adrenaline. "I have to confront him," she said, her words coming out sharper than intended. Her father put a hand on her arm, Maybe it's not worth it. Don't give him that power. Stay in your zone. No. She straightened up, drawing a deep breath. I can't let him intimidate us. The people need to see we're not afraid. With determination, she stepped away from her father, weaving through the crowd toward Baker. The murmurs faded, and her pulse quickened with every stride. She could feel their eyes on her, could sense the encouragement in the room as she approached him. Mr. Baker, she said, steadying her voice but fighting the tremor in her hands. What do you want? He turned slowly, surprise flickering on his face, but it quickly morphed into that familiar smugness. Wow, Sarah, I must say I admire your guts. But really, what can you do? This is just a temporary distraction. Distraction? This isn't just a diner. This is a part of us. You don't get to take that away. He leaned closer, amusement playing on his lips. But soon I'll have the land. And then what will you do? Has that thought crossed your little mind, dear? A knot twisted inside her, but she held her ground. People are willing to fight for this diner, and I won't let you scare us into silence. At that moment, a voice boomed from behind her. We're all in this together. Baker. It was Mrs. Ortega, holding her freshly baked apple pie aloft like a banner of defiance. Spirits seemed to invigorate the crowd, and they began to echo their support. Mr. Baker's expression darkened, but Sarah caught his gaze flicker between anger and disbelief. For a split second, she felt a raw surge of power. The community was rallying, surrounding her, their united voices crashing against the wall of his arrogance. Let us show him what we're made of, someone shouted. Sarah's heart soared. In that moment, she knew the fight was far from over, but she also sensed the tide turning. As the townsfolk stood behind her, determination solidifying like concrete, she realized they were not just fighting for a diner. They were fighting for each other. But just as hope surged in her chest, Baker took a step back, his eyes narrowing again. You think this is over? This is just the beginning. I'll be back. His dismissal sent a chill through her veins, reverberating louder than the laughter around. What could he possibly have up his sleeve? Sarah wondered, suddenly uneasy as the crowd cheered. She couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part of this fight was still ahead. What awaited her next in this battle for their beloved diner? The air buzzed with excitement, yet Sarah couldn't shake off the tension that Mr. Baker had injected into the celebration. While people around her reveled in joy, she felt the ground beneath her shift, her mind racing with thoughts of what Baker's return could mean. What did he have planned? Pull yourself together, she whispered to herself, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She had to focus. She had to be the rock everyone needed. Her father joined her side again, his brow furrowed with concern. Are you all right, Pumpkin? He asked softly, the warmth of his voice cutting through her anxiety. I'm fine, she replied, forcing a smile. Just worried. The reality sank in. No matter how many pies were served or how many games were played, Baker had cast a shadow that threatened to stifle their efforts. Fight for your dreams, he reminded her, but don't let fear lead you. He squeezed her shoulder and turned back to the festivities, leaving Sarah to contemplate the weight of his words. Taking stock of her surroundings, she watched her friends and neighbors gather, laughing and sharing stories like the old days. Mrs. Ortega was distributing slices of her famous pie, the fragrant aroma swirling through the air. That brought back memories of baking in the diner's kitchen. She realized, where they mixed flour and sugar with joy and laughter. The diner was about more than food. It was about love, unity, and community, something Baker could never grasp. Just then, the mayor grabbed the microphone again, ready to announce the pie-eating contest winner. The crowd hushed, anticipation thick in the air. And the winner is... His voice boomed but faltered for a moment, a strange look crossing his face. Sarah followed his gaze, her stomach twisting. It was Mr. Baker, sauntering toward the front of the crowd with an air of entitlement. His smugness had returned, and with it came a heavy silence that crushed the festive spirit like a weight. What does he want now? She thought, panic creeping back in. He stepped right up to the podium, taking the microphone as if it were his own. "Thanks, Mayor," Baker said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "I've come here to congratulate everyone on the festivities. It's heartwarming to see such camaraderie, but let us not forget." He paused for effect, scanning the crowd, "that this isn't over. Nothing can last forever. This diner shining star that it is will soon be mine." Gasps rippled through the audience, faces turning pale. Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. What kind of monster took joy in breaking people as spirits? "Your arrogance won't win you any hearts, Baker," shouted someone from the back. Cheers erupted around Sarah, but the sound felt distant. She locked eyes with Mr. Baker, her heart pounding against her ribs. Deep inside, she churned with rage and helplessness. He waved his hand dismissively. "Feel free to enjoy the pie for now, folks. But like all things sweet, this will soon turn sour." With a final smirk, he walked away, leaving a whirlwind of emotions in his wake. If that's the game he wants to play, Sarah thought, fury mixing with determination. She glanced at her neighbors, their expressions reflecting her resolve. They had come together today, and that bond felt unbreakable. Suddenly, an idea sparked in her mind. It wouldn't just be about fighting for the diner anymore. They could turn the tables. What if they could show Baker that their spirit was stronger than his greed? That they had more than just their business to fight for. They had a community, a family, a home. Maybe it's time for a bigger plan, Sarah mused, more to herself than anyone else. But how? Just as she began to assemble her thoughts, a loud bang resonated from behind her, too loud to be ignored. Turning, she spotted a group of kids tumbling into the diner, their faces alight with excitement. One of them waved a flyer. Sarah's heart raced, recognizing it as the same flyer for the community meeting she had envisioned. "What's happening?" she asked, her curiosity ignited. The sparkle in their eyes held a promise, one that hinted at a strategy that could transform this battle altogether. "What if we can take this fight right to Baker's doorstep?" asked one boy bravely, his enthusiasm contagious. A sense of hope washed over her. But now the real question loomed. Could they rally everyone together in time? The room felt alive, energy buzzing as she stood on the precipice of something potentially life-changing. But would it be enough to stand up to Mr. Baker, or would this plan lead them straight into more trouble? The laughter and chatter from the celebration faded into a low hum as Sarah focused on the kids flooding into the diner, their excitement bubbling over like soda fizz. Each child waved a brightly colored flyer, a banner of their hopes and dreams, and Sarah felt a ripple of anticipation surge through her. These kids believed in something bigger, something worth fighting for. "Is this for real?" she asked one girl with messy braids, wondering if they understood the implications of their enthusiastic proposal. The girl nodded vigorously. "Yeah, we want to help. We can share ideas and get everyone involved. We can't let Mr. Baker take the diner away." Her voice was confident, as if she held the secret to rallying the town together. Sarah's heart pounded, the intensity building in her chest. She looked around at her friends, her neighbors. Could they really come together to counter Baker's cold ambition? What if these kids were right? What if their fire could ignite the rest of the community? "All right, let us gather everyone," Sarah said, her voice breaking through the smoky tension that had been settling over the gathering. The kids cheered, and soon their enthusiasm became contagious. Sarah felt her own adrenaline kick in. The diner still smelled sweet, but it wasn't just the pies anymore. It was the scent of hope, of unity. They could be fierce, she thought. They could build a wall of love that Baker couldn't break through. Within moments, the diner buzzed with energy as neighbors began pouring in, drawn by the kids' excitement. Sarah stood in the center, her heart racing. "I have an idea, but I need all of you. I need the bakery crew, the artists, the musicians, everyone. We can combine our talents and put on a festival for the diner. A big celebration, to remind everyone what it means to have a community." The murmurs grew louder, a rush of agreement. People were nodding and smiling, their interest piqued. It felt like they were submerging themselves in something warm, something bigger than fear. The children handed out flyers, the colorful paper crackling in the summer heat. "I can bake," a stout boy named Ethan shouted, puffing up his chest. "I'll bring my mom's cookie recipes. And I can organize games." Another girl chimed in, her eyes sparkling with dreams of three-legged races and pie-eating competitions. "I'll make the posters," said yet another child, clenching a barely scribbled page in her small hands. Sarah felt a calmness now, the storm of anxiety inside her parting like clouds to reveal a brave new day. "Yes, we'll ask everyone to contribute. This is more than just a diner. It's our home. We'll show Baker that money can't buy what we have." The crowd erupted into applause and cheers, their voices rising like a chorus of defiance. It was magic, watching the community rally, feeling their resolve crisp in the summer air. They were ready to show Baker what true strength looked like, and she couldn't help but smile. But as they brainstormed ideas, Sarah couldn't shake a lingering worry. Would it be enough? Could they gather the resources, the energy, the love needed to counter Baker's ruthless ambition? The doubt clawed at her mind like tendrils of dark fog. Just then, an older woman stepped forward, her eyes steady and wise. "You know, Sarah," she began, "it's one thing to plan an event, but do we really know what Baker is capable of? He won't just sit back and take it if we try to rally the town. He could strike back harder than we anticipate." A wave of silence washed over the crowd, uncertainty creeping back in. Sarah gulped, the weight of that truth pressing down on her. Would they truly be prepared for whatever Baker plotted next? She felt a deep-rooted fear, the kind that made her heart thump wildly. But she also sensed that having faith in her community was the first step forward. And the question loomed over her like a storm cloud ready to break. Could they truly match wits with Mr. Baker? The diner's atmosphere grew thick with tension as Sarah's heart raced, matching the pitter-patter of her thoughts. Everyone seemed to sense the reality of the situation, their excitement dimming a little under the weight of the impending challenge. But it was the voices of the children that broke through. Their laughter rang out like clear notes of a familiar song, reminding her of why they were here. "Don't worry, Sarah." Ethan's voice rang out again, filled with youthful determination. "We can do this. Let's put on the best festival ever. We'll show Mr. Baker that he can't take our home." His words ignited a spark in Sarah's chest. She looked around, noticing the hopeful faces of her neighbors, uncertainty still lingering but fading slowly under this wave of collective spirit. "Who else wants to pitch in ideas?" she called out, emboldened by their combined enthusiasm. "What can we do to raise awareness? How can we get the townsfolk involved?" Hands shot up like rockets. A woman in the back shouted out, "We could sell baked goods at the festival. Everyone loves pie." "Yes, and I bet the high school band would play for us," chimed in another voice from the crowd. The ideas came pouring in, flooding the diner with visions of games, food, music, and art. Sarah smiled wider with every suggestion, feeling the atmosphere shift to something vibrant and alive. But still, in the back of her mind, a shadow loomed, the reality of Baker's power and what he could do in response. Okay, let us make sure we're ready," Sarah responded, her voice gaining confidence. "We need to organize everything. Let us break into groups. We'll need a baking team, an entertainment group, and a promotion crew." The crowd erupted into a flurry of motion. People started gathering, aligning themselves with their own talents. Sarah watched, filling with gratitude for this spirited community. But beyond that, she felt an unfamiliar resolve settling in. This was about more than the diner. It was about their home, their spirit. Suddenly, a scream of delight broke through the din. A little girl had painted a large sign that read "Save Our Diner" in bright yellow letters. "Look, I can help with the decorations," she cried, clutching her art as if it were a trophy. Sarah felt a swell of pride wash over her. "That's perfect. We need banners everywhere. Let us make this festival the most colorful and loudest expression of our love for this place." Each spirited voice and chirping laugh filled her with renewed hope. Yet, just behind that hope were thoughts of Mr. Baker, lurking like a storm on the horizon, waiting to strike. What would he do when he found out? The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the diner in hues of orange and pink. But Sarah's heart felt the chill of an approaching winter. Would their preparations be enough? Could they really rise against a man who seemed to hold the number of dollars as his only means of power? As they scattered, every neighborhood figure taking on their roles, Sarah felt both fear and exhilaration swell within her. What became clear was that no matter the outcome, they were forging something new, a bond stronger than she had ever witnessed. But right then, across the street, there it was, Mr. Baker's sleek black car, pulling into the parking lot. The smile faded from her face. The moment of truth arrived, and she wondered, was this still a festival or the start of a battle? The rusting roar of Mr. Baker's car door creaking open echoed in Sarah's ears louder than the chatter of her neighbors. She felt every heartbeat, a reminder that this wasn't just another day. This was a turning point. The warmth of community she had felt moments ago fled as uncertainty gripped her. "Everyone, keep it down," she hissed, though her voice trembled. There was a collective stillness, the air thick with anticipation. Mr. Baker stepped out, adjusting his expensive suit and surveying the scene with narrowed eyes. His demeanor was calm, but Sarah recognized the glint of menace in his expression. People's eyes darted away from him, and she could see fear creeping into her neighbors' faces like a shadow slinking across the floor. "Stay calm," Sarah whispered, stepping forward unconsciously, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. It was time to face the storm. "Mr. Baker," she called, keeping her tone steady, "we're planning a festival to celebrate our diner and community. We want to show how important this place is to us." He turned, raising an eyebrow. "A festival? That's cute." His voice dripped with disdain, like honey turned bitter. "But do you really think a bunch of pie sales and music will change anything?" Her heart sank, but she held his gaze. "It's about more than money. It's about belonging, community, and the stories we share. You can't put a price on that." The townsfolk began to gather behind her, drawn by her defiance. There was strength in numbers, and Sarah felt it flowing through her. The warmth she had felt moments earlier began to flicker back to life. People began to nod, their faces betraying their own defiance against the threat of Baker's looming presence. Mr. Baker's lip curled, a disdainful smile creeping across his face. "I admire your spirit, Sarah. Really I do. But it's idealistic. The world is driven by success, and it's a hard truth. You think you can win over people with sentiment?" Her heart raced as he continued his onslaught. "The only thing that matters is who can write the bigger checks. And I can write them with one hand tied behind my back. Maybe," she shot back, feeling a surge of courage. "But money can't buy loyalty or love. People will always choose what truly matters." Baker stared her down, the tension so thick she could almost slice through it. Seconds felt like hours. Just when it seemed he might retort, he laughed a low, mocking sound. "You're naive. But let us see how this festival shakes out. Perhaps it'll be entertaining after all." With that, he turned on his heel and strutted back to his car, an air of superiority clinging to him. As the door slammed shut, Sarah felt the whispers of uncertainty from the crowd. Baker had walked away, but his shadow loomed larger than ever. "Did you hear that?" Ethan whispered, excitement and worry mingling. "He's underestimating us." Sarah took a breath, the smell of fried food and coffee blending with the flickering energy of anticipation. "We're not done yet. This is just the beginning. Let us make this festival the loudest celebration they've ever seen." As ideas buzzed around her like fireflies, she felt a rush of adrenaline. But as the sun dipped behind distant hills, casting eerie shadows over the diner, one question nagged at her. Would their efforts be enough to stand against a man who saw only dollar signs? Determination surged within her, but it was mixed with dread at the enormity of the task ahead. She glanced again at the horizon, fear nipping at her heels. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a group of new faces walking in her direction, their intentions unreadable. Would they help, or would they add to the chaos brewing in this small town? As Sarah squinted to get a better view, her heart raced again. The new faces were unfamiliar, two women and a man smiling as they approached, but she couldn't shake the worry that bubbled in her chest. Who were they? Were they friends or foes? The growing crowd around her seemed to share this uncertainty, their quiet whispers rising again. Once they reached the center of the commotion, one of the women stepped forward. She had curly hair and bright eyes that sparkled with warmth. "Hi there. I'm Lisa. We just moved here from a few towns over," she said, her voice steady. "We heard about your little standoff with Mr. Baker, and we want to help." This unexpected display of support sent a wave of relief washing over Sarah. But she needed to know more. "Help? What do you mean by that?" The man beside Lisa, tall and lanky with a genuine smile, nodded eagerly. "We believe in community too. We heard about your plans for a festival through the grapevine, and it sounded inspiring. We want to contribute however we can." Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. "Really? We need people to help organize, handle supplies, and spread the word," she said, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. "Count us in," Lisa exclaimed. "We've started similar events and understand how to rally people together. We can find sponsors, get music lined up. If you have a vision, we can help make it a reality. Just tell us what you need." Her heart swelled as she looked at her neighbors, and she could see the spark of enthusiasm igniting among the crowd. Maybe they could pull this off. Maybe this festival wasn't just a dream but a lifeline for the community. "Okay," Sarah said, smiling brightly, "but let us make it clear we're doing this for our town. It's nothing without the people here." The group nodded, a chorus of agreement echoing in the air. She felt like the weight of the world had shifted just a little. Then Ethan chimed in, asking questions about logistics and promo strategies. The energy transformed, turning into a plan, ideas volleying like a game of catch among them as they brainstormed ideas under the dimming sky. Joy and laughter intermingled with apprehension, mixing into something whole and brilliant. Sarah took a step back, watching her neighbors, people she had grown up with, older folk, kids, new faces all gathering around her, unified in purpose. But in the back of her mind, there was still a nagging worry. Was Baker truly finished with them? As they poured their hearts into planning, would he just sit back and devise a new scheme to sabotage their efforts? The ominous weight of his threat lingered at the edges of her thoughts. The festival drew closer each moment, but so did the possibility of Baker's wrath. Just as laughter erupted from a joke someone shared, Sarah's gaze returned to the horizon, hoping for a sign. However, what she saw stopped her breath, a figure standing there, cloaked in shadows, simply watching. Fear knotted her stomach tight. Who was it? And what did they want? The path ahead was beginning to open, full of promise and peril alike. Would they be able to fight back against Baker's looming presence? Or would the community they cherished be scattered like leaves in the wind? The uncertainty loomed larger, and worry drew tighter around her heart as she steeled herself for the inevitable storm. As the last rays of sunlight flickered away, dusk enveloped the scene, casting elongated shadows that stretched toward Sarah like eerie fingers. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the whispers around her, but she dared not look away from the mysterious figure watching from the distance. "Who's that?" Ethan followed her gaze, his voice laced with curiosity and concern. The crowd fell silent, each person instinctively sensing the tension in the air. I don't know," Sarah replied, anxiety creeping into her voice. She felt exposed, as if the figure had pulled back the curtain on their hopes and dreams, revealing them to be mere illusions. The figure shifted slightly, and for a moment, Sarah could almost make out details: tattered clothes and a cap pulled low. A chill ran down her spine. What did they want? Why were they just watching? "Maybe it's just someone passing through," Lisa suggested, though her eyes darted nervously. "Right? Or someone from Baker's crew," Ethan countered, his tone growing harder. "We can't take any chances. Sarah, let us go see." "No," Sarah exclaimed, surprising herself with the urgency that spilled from her lips. A wave of protectiveness surged within her. "I don't want to risk drawing attention," the crowd murmured, echoing her fear. And yet, behind that fear was a spark of determination. People were finally coming together, and they could not let anything, especially Baker, squash this newfound hope. "We need to stay focused on the festival," she continued, glancing at the faces surrounding her, searching for reassurance. "We can't let anything distract us from this opportunity. It's about community, about us." Nods of agreement followed, even among the uneasy murmurs. The figure lurked there in the shadows, an uncomfortable reminder that outside forces were still at play. But strength flickered within Sarah as she looked at her neighbors, her friends. "Let us make a plan," she declared, raising her voice above the whispers. "We need to come together more than ever. If we focus, we can make this festival a success." A signal to Baker that we're not backing down. Someone hollered a suggestion about meetings, another about flyers, each idea building into a chorus that surged through Sarah's veins. The tension began to dissolve into determination, rising like steam off freshly boiled water. Yet, beneath that determination, the worry still gnawed at her heart. How long could they stay ahead? Would Baker really sit idly by as they worked toward revitalizing their town? Just outside the warmth of their gathering, dread wrapped around her mind. Suddenly, the figure moved, stepping slightly into the light. Sarah's breath caught as two familiar eyes emerged from the shadow's eyes she recognized instantly. "Tom?" she gasped in disbelief. Tom, the local handyman known for his quiet demeanor and thoughtful glances, stood before them, his body cut from the shapes of night. "What are you doing out here?" "I need to talk," he said, his voice low and urgent, not sounding like his usual self. The crowd hushed, their curiosity piqued further. "What's going on?" Sarah pressed, her heart racing anew. The momentary buzz of exhilaration from her earlier plans faded into something more palpable, an undercurrent of fear beginning to unravel her composure. Tom glanced back at the shadows, then stepped closer to her. "It's about Baker. He has not done yet. He is planning something big, and you need to know." The group stood frozen, caught in the breathless moment of revelation. As Sarah stared into Tom's serious gaze, searching for the words that threatened to change everything. What was Baker plotting now? And would they be able to protect the festival before it was too late? Sarah felt a cold wave wash over her as Tom's words sent ripples through the gathered crowd. The laughter that had filled the diner moments before faded into anxious murmurs. This wasn't just about a festival anymore. The stakes were higher, and the shadow of Baker loomed larger than she had anticipated. "What do you mean, Tom?" she pressed, her heart beating fast. "What's he planning?" He glanced around nervously and then stepped closer. "I overheard some folks from Baker's team talking at the diner last week. They're not just interested in the land. They're planning a major campaign to bury your efforts. They want to scare everyone off. Make people think your festival is a waste of time." The weight of his words hit Sarah hard. Fear threatened to creep back, but she shook it off. This was a wake-up call. They couldn't back down now. "We can't let him intimidate us," she insisted, feeling a surge of determination rise within her. "If anything, this should fuel our fire. We need to rally harder. We show him our strength, not our fear." As she spoke, she could see the flicker of resolve returning to her neighbor's eyes. One voice came forth, steady and strong. "If he wants to play games, let us show him how much we care. We need to remind everyone why this diner matters." In just moments, the crowd began buzzing again, ideas flowing. A barrage of suggestions poured forth about social media campaigns, community outreach, and ways to draw participants to the festival. The spirit of camaraderie surged like a tidal wave, washing over any remnants of doubt that lingered in Sarah's heart. "Let us make this festival not just a celebration, but a statement," Sarah declared, her voice rising above the din. "We'll invite everyone. We'll spread the word to neighboring towns. Let us show Baker that this isn't just about the diner, it's about all of us." They broke into small groups, each person eager to put their skills to good use. As laughter returned to the diner, mixed with excited chatter, Sarah felt hope reignite. She had never seen her community come together like this. Not just over food, but over what truly mattered, their home and their bond. Days turned into a flurry of activity leading up to the festival. Flyers were distributed, musicians signed on, and chefs began coordinating who would make what. The energy was electric. People began to share ideas online, posting about the festival on social media, using the hashtag #SaveOurDiner. It felt as if the power of the community was being remolded into something fierce. But late one night, just as Sarah was putting together final arrangements in the diner, doubt crept in again. The memory of Mr. Baker's smirk haunted her mind. She knew he wouldn't just sit idly by. What retaliation could he have in store for them? She couldn't ignore that possibility, as the big day approached. Sarah's anxiety rose like the steam from the coffee pots. The night before the festival, she found herself pacing her room, her mind racing through every detail. Would it be enough? Would Baker come through with his threats? The morning dawned bright, but a murky sense of foreboding hung over her. She dressed and made her way to the diner, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. When she arrived, the diner was alive with activity, neighborly laughter echoing through the air as they set up tables and decorations. As the sun climbed higher, Sarah began to feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Even with the tension, the spirit of community shone brightly. She knew they were well prepared. Hours passed, and the festival kicked into gear. Food was served, laughter rang out, and strangers became friends as the community came together like never before. Sarah watched from behind the counter, her heart swelling with pride. This was what it meant to belong. But just as she began to relax, a familiar figure darkened the door. Mr. Baker had arrived, flanked by a few of his associates. Sarah's heart sunk, the warmth of the festival instantly cooling. Baker looked around with a mix of scorn and amusement before taking center stage. With a broad grin, "Well, isn't this adorable?" he mocked, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. A little carnival to distract everyone from the reality of business. "I hope you all realize this one save your diner." But before he could continue, someone in the crowd shouted back, cementing Sarah's resolve. "This diner is our heritage. We're not afraid of you." The crowd erupted in applause, their voices echoing in unity. Sarah felt emboldened. She stepped forward, taking the microphone herself. "Thank you, everyone. Today isn't just about food. It's about love, friendship, memories, and the fight to keep that which matters most to us." Her voice rang with strength, gathering momentum as she spoke. The crowd joined in, their cheers loud and unapologetic. Baker's smirk faltered, replaced by a flash of anger. Suddenly, every person present wasn't just there to enjoy a festival. They were there to declare their love for the diner, their community, and each other. With each laugh and smiling face, Sarah realized they had already won. Whatever happened next, they had proven that Baker could threaten their diner, but he could never take away their heart. As he turned to leave, disgruntled, she felt waves of relief wash over her. In that moment, she knew that every challenge was only an opportunity to rise even stronger. She had inspired her community, and together they had reignited hope in a place that could have been lost forever. As the sun set, casting golden light over the diner and its now jubilant patrons, Sarah looked around at the faces of her family, real family, and felt nothing short of elation. They were more than just a diner. They were a home, a heart beating with resilience, and Baker's darkness couldn't extinguish that spirit in the heart of their togetherness. Sarah had discovered the true magic of community. With renewed courage, she whispered a quiet vow to herself. They would fight for what they cherished and, together, they would never back down again. As she leaned back to enjoy the moment, she took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever challenges came next. This was just the beginning of their beautiful transformation, and it was time for the world to know so. If you felt the power of this journey, you need to subscribe now. This is your moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. You won't want to miss what comes next.